back here. Just remember, folks, I am going to watch where we're going. And I'll be talking to my right and left while we go around town. Now, my name is Preacher Tom. I'm going to be your driver, narrator, and part-time irritator. Let me introduce you to the big guys out in front doing all hard work for us today. Up here, we got a set of twins. Their mama was a Belgian drive horse, their papa was a Percheron. Boys on my right, his name is Chip. His sister's on the left, and that's Dale. You're probably going to hear me talking to Chip and Dale while we're out on the tour. Y'all just sit back and relax. We're headed back over 140 years, back to when Tombstone was nothing but a silver mining town. Actually became a city back in the year 1879, and before we were even 3 years old, we'd already had two major fires. On the left, on that corner, that's the world-famous Crystal Palace. Built the year we became a city, the Golden Eagle Brewery. Surviving the fire of 1881, burned in the fire of 82. That got rebuilt in less than a month and been the Crystal Palace since June of 1882. Now, keep it in mind while I tell you about the ambush of Virgil. Left against the Oriental Saloon, where the Earp brothers controlled the barrow, and on the right's a branding iron, and that was a single-story bucket of blood saloon. Happened on the night of December 28, 1881. A couple of months after the gunfight, Marshal Virgil come out of the Oriental to make his nightly rounds. Headed for the brewery, and shots rang out from above the bucket of blood. A couple of those actually struck him in the back of his left shoulder. Lost use of the arm, but never quit being a lawman. Virgil died at the age of 62 as a nickname, the one-armed law dog, in 1905. Wyatt, man, had spent the last 10 years of his life working for film companies in Hollywood. Died at the age of 81 in 1929. On the right now, that's a Birdcage Theater. It is the most authentic and most haunted museum in town. They had their grand opening a week before the ambush of Virgil, 21st of December 1881. And they operated straight through to 1889. I never even bothered closing the doors. 23 murders happened in the Birdcage, and the world's longest running poker game. It went on down in that basement. Oh, it did not matter. It cost $1,000 to buy into that game, which is right at 30 grand today. Documented to have had a minimum of 4 men round that table, 8 years, 5 months, 3 days non-stop. Every eye roller played in that game. Estimated $10 million changed hands. Table still set up down in that basement. Matter of fact, everything in the Birdcage came from right here in Tombstone back during our heyday. From the books all the way down to our horse-drawn hearse, which is called the Black Maria. Now, on the right, we've got the Mercantile Store. That was the Arcadia Saloon and site of our first fire, June 1881. Happened after a couple of brilliant bartenders checked the sour barrel of whiskey. One of them had a lit cigar and 66 buildings burned. Out the right, behind the Crystal Palace, there is the Tombstone Epitaph. It was late in the year 1879 when our first elected mayor, an Indian Affairs agent by the name of John P. Plum, got to town. He told the folks here there's no tombstone complete without its epitaph. May 1st, 1880 founded that newspaper, which is still in print today. On the right, Red Buffalo. That was Campbell and Hatch Billiards. In there, March 18, 1882, Morgan's playing a game. Outlaw shot through the back door, assassinate Morgan, and the Earps left town for good. Now, out the right and up over that fence, there's Shefflin's Hall. It's on the corner of 4th and Fremont. It's the largest freestanding adobe structure still in full-time use in Arizona. And on the right now, we got Arlene's Tappard's Liquor Store. It's where the Earps pick up Holiday on the way to the gunfight. They don't go down to the OK Corral like we are. I turn right and go over that one block to Fremont. Today that's Highway 80, and they won't let us drive horses on the highway. Earps got to that corner, they turned left and went on down to the alley. And I'll tell you more about that after the old-time photos on the right, and the wine tasting room, which was the Can Restaurant, owned and operated by a Chinese fella, humanitarian by the name of Quan Chi. Oh, that man was so respected by this town that when he died in Douglas, they buried him in Bisbee. 3,000 folks got together and brought him back. You'll find Quan Chi in Boot Hill. On the right there's the OK Corral, which is not where the gunfight happened. Out the right in the back of the park, there's a telephone pole, and it's the opposite side of that wall. That's where those 5 cowboys were in that 15-foot wide alleyway, and the Earps and Doc out on Fremont. Well, 2:30 in the afternoon, there's 30 seconds worth of gunfire. In the end, Ike Clanton and Billy Claiborne survived because they ran away. Billy Clanton's dead in the alley. Tom and Frank McLaury die a block to the right by the stop sign. Well, Virgil, Morgan, and Holiday are wounded. Wyatt walked away without a scratch. Newspapers called it the gun battle on Fremont. On the left, for Deuce's Saloon. Well, there's that gunfire. That was Addie Borland's house, and she's the Earps eyewitness. That building stood directly across Fremont from the alley. Moved it here in '92. Left again, Brett Blackwell. That's home of China Mary. And welcome to Chinatown. It is both sides of the coach. We had 300 registered Chinese living in these 2 blocks back during our heyday. Every one of them under China Mary's watchful eye. That woman was a member of the Tong, the Chinese syndicate. Well, she ran Chinatown. You were Chinese and wanted to work here, you had to pay her off to get the job and pay her every week you worked. Operated the opium trade and died a wealthy woman. China Mary's in Boot Hill. Take a look out the right now, folks, and 16 miles out there. Well, those are the Dragoon Mountains. And that's where the Apache war chief Cochise had his stronghold. That was 1862 all the way up until 1874. That's when Cochise and only 27 of his warriors from the Chiricahua band of Apaches, well, they held the entire 3rd Cavalry from Fort Huachuca, 16 miles south here, at bay up in those mountains. I put almost 100 soldiers into the ground during those 12 years. Never lost a warrior. Oh, there's lots of stories told how that conflict ended. I believe he escaped with his men to the Chiricahua Mountains. It's where they documented his death. Cochise was so revered they brought him back. He's buried out in the Dragoons in a grave no white man will ever find. Out the right, across the street, big brown building on the corner, got that little black car out front. Well, that's where the home of Virgil Earp stood. Lost it in a fire. Back in 1996, across Fremont on that corner of First, Wyatt's home is still standing. 9-foot bronze statue of Wyatt in his yard. You'll find it on the highway pretty easy. Holiday never owned property, save on a poker table, Left out of here with Kate, they made it as far as Prescott and parted ways. Doc going on to Glenwood Springs, Colorado at the age of 36. Dying there 1887. Now on the left, that tan building belonged to another lawman, and he come out of San Antonio, Texas. John Slaughter. That man stood 5'2", had a size 5 cowboy boot, and they still made him sheriff multiple times. Few men ran, and none of them came back. Oh, he'd always bring back their boot, saddle, hat, and gun belt just to prove he got his man. Now on the right's the home of Doc Goodfellow. Keep him in mind. Let me tell you about the chains on top of that rock wall. You're gonna see the wear on them. Well, these are the original drag chains. Come off the very first set of 9-ton ore carts that operated out of Tombstone. Now, those carts always came in sets of 3. Those got here 1877, and there were a whole bunch more just like them showed up shortly thereafter. Had over 25 mines open up in these hills to our right before we even became a city. None of that ore got processed here. We haven't got the water. They brought in those 9-ton carts and ran it all down to the San Pedro River. Now, the house belonged to Dr. George Emery Goodfellow, physician, surgeon, and gunshot specialist. And after working on everybody in that gun battle on Fremont, made him county coroner 7 years straight. On the right, between stop sign and fence, there was a telegraph pole, and our only lynching strung up John Heath there. Now, John was an outlaw, lived here in town, but at the end of November 1883, he took a trip to Bisbee and found a store with an awful lot of cash on hand. And he was getting ready to rob the place when somebody recognized him. He came back after 4 of his friends go rob the store. He waited, led the posse in the wrong direction. 4 of them shot and killed everybody. It's called the Bisbee Massacre. It didn't even take 2 hours. Posse arrested John. He gave him up. Next day, everybody's locked up on the right in the courthouse, and out the right up over that brick wall is the gallows. His 4 buddies hung by the neck. Well, John, he wasn't part of the gunfire. Got 20 years hard labor in Yuma and locked him up in the courthouse. Next day, Tombstone busted him out, drug him down to the pole, and strung him up by hand. Took the man more than 20 minutes just to die. And C.S. Fly got a picture of it. Hanging in the courthouse, right next to his death certificate. Our county coroner just happened to be in that lynch mob. He showed a sense of humor when Goodfellow wrote down John Heath had died of emphysema of the lungs, possibly caused by high altitude or strangulation. Now, let me tell you about our founder. That is Edward Lawrence Shefflin. Shefflin all got named for him. Well, Ed was the scout for that 3rd Cav down on Fort Huachuca for a couple of years. He told the Army 1875 that he was coming here to prospect. They looked at him and said, Edwin, you lose your mind. You already know all about them hostile Apaches in the hills. You'll mess around up there, find nothing but your tombstone. It was 1876 when he found the $85 million worth of silver. 77. He came back with Mr. Gerd and John Escapool, opened that first mine, called it the Tombstone for them naysayers. 2 years later, with 2,000 folks living here, they incorporated as a city and took the name of the first mine. Out right there is Tombstone City Library. That was built in 1903 as the Railway Depot. And the Southern Pacific operated here all the way up until 1959. On the right now, Rosebush Museum. The roses in that backyard. It was 1885 when a young Scottish newlywed planted that 6-inch cutting of the White Lady Banks rose. It went into the Ripley's Believe It or Not book 1935. In his Book of World Records in 1945. Remains in both of those books today. It blooms every April. On the left, Chamber of Commerce Visitor Center. This is our first adobe building in town. A gentleman by the name of Pi Allen. He helped design and build it, and Allen Street that we're turning back on to got a name for him. Now the Visitor Center as well as Shefflin's Hall, and that'll be a block to our left after this corner. Both were untouched by the major fires. That second fire actually happened a couple of months after the Earps left town for good. It was May 25th, 1882 when 100 businesses burned. One of them on the left, the other side of that fence, Cosmopolitan Hotel stood there with 2 stories and 80 rooms. It's where they put the Earps and Holiday under house arrest during the inquest over that gun battle on Fremont. Eddie Borland's testimony, and they were found not responsible, which is a whole lot different than not guilty. On the right, Big Nose Kate Saloon and the J.L. Silver Company. Those 7 arches are all that's left of the Grand Hotel where the Earps stayed when they got to town. As for Big Nose Kate, Doc's girlfriend didn't have that big a nose.
So how many horsepower was that?
2.
Chip and Dale.
2 horsepower. 2 horsepower. Right, right.